I'm Denise.
She's a non-fiction editor. And I'm Louise.
She's a fiction editor. And together,
we're the Editing Podcast. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Editing Podcast. This week we're talking about testimonials for editors and proofreaders and why including them in your online spaces is likely to do lovely things for your business.
Yeah, so the fact is this. Testimonials build trust and credibility. That's the nub of it. So we went looking for some recent statistics and we looked at a survey carried out by Bright Local in 2024. It's Local Consumer Review Survey, to be exact.
Yeah, and one of the things that they looked at was how often people paid attention to consumer reviews when they're researching local businesses. And they found that around 75% of people take these into account always or regularly. If you add in occasionally, the figure increases to over 90%.
That's a huge amount,
it really
isn't
is.
it? Yeah. So it's reasonable to assume that this kind of behaviour is also taking place in our sector.
Yeah. When clients are looking at our editing and proofreading websites and our editorial directory entries and deciding whether we're worth taking that next step with, testimonials probably count a lot.
Yeah, and the thing I think we need to bear in mind is that we're working in a global and competitive market. So anything we can do to make ourselves stand out is worth considering.
Yeah. And of course, we need to get our messaging right and ensure that potential clients understand why we're a good fit for them. But having someone else say that we've already been a good fit and delivered on our promises, well, you can't really beat that, can you?
Absolutely not. And it's one thing for me to say I'm brilliant. It's quite another for a client to say it.
Yeah. And it takes the words we write about our businesses and validates them because our web copy is about a promise, whereas a testimonial is about a client's actual experience.
Yeah, it's the before and after, isn't it? It's so powerful.
Yeah, that's a really good way of thinking about it. So let's chat about how editors and proofreaders might go about asking for testimonials. So I think timing matters. It's about finding the right moment, and 4 months after the fact is probably too late.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I always think the best time to ask is right after a project's ended and my client's at their most satisfied, peak satisfaction.
Yeah, and you're still top of mind. It's that warm, fuzzy period, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the other thing is to be direct. Don't fanny around with it.
Yeah, now this can be something that new editors feel a little bit nervous about, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with asking for nice words. And you can frame it in a friendly way, something along the lines of, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the work we did together. Would you be willing to give me a brief testimonial?
Yeah, and it's important to be upfront about what you're going to be doing with it as well.
Yeah.
So maybe something like, would you be willing to give me a brief testimonial that I can use on my website? Something like that.
Yeah. And an excuse might be if you send a follow-up thank you note after a project, saying what a pleasure it was to edit or proofread for them and how you'd love to work with them again. That would be a good point to add in your request.
Yeah. Don't ask them at the bottom of your invoice.
No, not a good idea. Yeah, but another thing to consider is how you might make it easy for them, reduce those barriers. So maybe you could create a simple Google form or a web form or a template that clients can fill out. I feel bad even suggested that, but I haven't actually got around to doing one myself.
I haven't either, and it's daft because it's a 30-minute job at most.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm going to do it as soon as we finish this episode.
Ooh, fight and talk.
No. Now, let's talk about what makes an effective testimonial. So an actual name is a must if the person's prepared to give it.
Yes, it can be tricky because some clients won't allow this. I know of situations where some of our colleagues have worked with big name clients, huge brands, and the name and the company is a complete no-no.
Yeah, that can be a problem. But most publishers, packagers and indie authors are usually more than happy to supply some words of praise and put their name to them. And even if a client only wants to provide their first name rather than their business name or company name, that can still feel personal. And if they're prepared to allow an image of them to be included too, or a logo, that can be really good too.
Yeah, and it could be that in your template or form, you suggest a few nudges for your client of things that they could consider.
Yeah, so what challenges they faced or how your services helped them and the outcomes they experienced.
Totally. It really shores up the authenticity of it, doesn't it? Yeah. So let's talk about where to put your testimonials on your website. And there are several schools of thought on this. The first says, have a dedicated page on your website.
Yeah, I get that. It enables potential clients to find them easily and then read them. And it's a good option if you haven't got a particularly busy website and don't already have multiple tabs in play that you want to stand out.
Yeah, and if you don't want to take up that valuable real estate with testimonials because it will mean that you end up with less visibility on something as important as your services or other products you're selling, then another school of thought says put them on your homepage because that's the page most visitors are likely to look at.
Yeah. And yet another school says every page is on your website is a testimonials page, or should be. So sprinkle them around. And that's the approach I've gone for. They're literally everywhere. Anyway, I'm not sure there's a rule. I think instead editors have to make sure that they're somewhere, and that wherever that is, they're findable and visible.
Absolutely. Yes. I'm a sprinkler too. I have them in all pages across my website. Yeah. But yeah, put them in a box so that they stand out wherever they are, and make sure they're not huge walls of text, which can be really off-putting.
Yeah, and a little trick to use if a client gives you a lengthy testimonial is to take a core takeaway and turn that into a pithy heading above the text so that it stands out. So a one-liner that really packs a punch.
Yeah, and if it's a proper web heading, you'll get some SEO benefits from that too.
Yeah. So we should talk about other ways of showcasing positive feedback, because yes, we can paste nice words in boxes, which is what you and I have done, but that's not the only option. So one alternative is the video testimonial.
Yeah, I can't remember the stats or the source, which isn't particularly helpful, but I'm sure there's been research done that proves that faces and voices have a much stronger effect.
You're right. I can't quote it either, but I've heard it too. And it does make sense because it's harder to fake. Well, it used to be.
Yeah.
It used to be. We're entering an era where that might not be the case.
Yeah, and we'll soon be in a world where people's websites are stacked with loads of AI-generated video testimonials. But that's a whole other thing, so let's not go there today.
Let's not. So another option is to take one or two testimonials and turn them into detailed case studies. So you'd add in some context around the project, explain what the client's goals were and what your part in the process was as an editorial proofreader.
Yeah, I think that's a really neat idea because some editors and proofreaders work with clients who've never used an editor before and who might be nervous about what it involves.
Yeah, and a case study might really help them understand the bigger picture and give them a sense of how you might work with them.
Yeah. Just one final thing that might be useful for those of you who do email marketing, and that's to integrate testimonials into your newsletter. Maybe you could have a client spotlight section.
Yeah, I've seen some of our colleagues doing that. It's a really nice touch. Just make sure you get permission from the client so they know their testimonial is going to be used in that space.
Yeah, no surprises. So look, testimonials are likely to make a difference, a big one, and they certainly don't do any harm. So our advice is to make this part of your business practice.
Yeah. Just like sending an invoice or creating an editorial report or style sheet. It's just something you do every time you work for a new client.
Yeah. So that's it from us. Thank you once again for listening. We really hope you enjoyed this episode.
And if you'd like to help support the Editing Podcast, we've got a couple of options for you. The first is you can tip us with a one-off donation of your choosing.
Or you can join our Patreon community. All our patrons get exclusive access to a huge batch of transcripts.
Both the links are in the show notes. In the meantime, she's been Denise.
And she's been Louise. Join us again soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.